Well, again, good morning, everyone. Very nice to see all of you here today at this first of 4 speaker events put on by the Chamber of Commerce and co-sponsored by the City of Mukilteo, of course. Glad to have you all here. My name is Matt Martin. I'm the President Board of the Chamber of Commerce. I want to take a moment to recognize the actual sponsors for today. Waste Management has stepped up to help us out. Of course, the City of Mukilteo, thank you so much for the space and lending us the mayor for a couple hours today. Are there any, besides Tom and his boss are here, Tom Jordahl and Amy, elected officials. Any other electeds here today besides the mayor and the Jordahls? I notice there are some officers here. They have promised to not serve the warrant on me until after this program, so I appreciate that, fellows, for being here. Thank you so much. Before we get to our mayor, I'd like to introduce Candace Barnes. She is the CEO of the Mukilteo Chamber. She is the one that's making all the magic happen at the Chamber these days. So without further ado, Candace Barnes.
Well, good morning, almost noon, everyone. As Matt mentioned, we're so excited that you're here today in this beautiful building on one of the most breathtaking waterfronts in our state, and I would even go so far as to say in our country. This is, sometimes when I drive down the Speedway, I just get a little overwhelmed with how gorgeous this place is, and this building in particular really showcases how lucky we are to be in this beautiful space. I'd also like to acknowledge that this ground where we are is the traditional territory of the Snohomish tribe. As we all know, Mukilteo is a wonderful place to live. It's also a wonderful place to do business. We're fortunate to have a vibrant business community, which the Chamber supports through advocacy, education, and opportunities. Supporting the nearly 600 local businesses that are right here in Mukilteo, it's our primary purpose to do that for the Chamber of Commerce. From your favorite family-run restaurants to bigger corporations, our local businesses are truly the backbone of our community. During times of celebrations like birthdays and anniversaries, to getting through sometimes harder times, like when your basement floods on Mother's Day, which happened to me, or when you have a hornet's nest and you're afraid to go outside, also happened to me. Our local businesses can be the saving graces for some of those difficult times that we get through. And together, those momentous occasions become part of our memories and part of our history and our shared experience. So we're very thankful for our local businesses. At the Chamber, we consider ourselves to be the voice of businesses, and we take that charge very seriously. We know that we have a strong local business community, and we're lucky for that. But that local business is crucial to having economic strength and a healthy community. The Chamber also supports economic strength and community building by bringing events to Mukilteo that not only encourage tourism and drive traffic to our businesses, but events that bring our broader community together to celebrate this beautiful region that we are fortunate to call home. Some of the events managed by the Chamber of Commerce include Music at the Beach Summer Concert Series, wine tasting events, the Mukilteo Car Show, the Lighthouse Festival live music stage and beer garden, Spooktacular, Merry Mukilteo, and the Santa Cruz. These events, along with others, are made possible by a partnership with the City of Mukilteo, and I can't say enough great things about the staff and folks that we are so fortunate to work with. And we are grateful to have a strong liaison with the city, and this positive relationship allows us all to come together to grow, flourish, and thrive like we're doing today. Thanks again for joining us.
I guess I didn't have to walk all the way over there. I need the exercise though, so. Without any further ado this morning, I'd like to introduce our featured speaker for today, Mayor Joe Marine, who will give us his State of the City address, followed by time for questions and hopefully some answers after that. Please welcome Mayor Joe Marine.
You want to stand here or are you doing a microphone? I'm gonna do this right here.
All right. Well, here, do you want to wander?
No, well, I may wander in a bit, but for now, I'm going to stay put for a second so I can concentrate on this. Thank you, Matt, and thank you so much to the Chamber of Commerce for this continued great relationship that we have. I want to also welcome you to the beautiful Rosehill Community Center. The beautiful Rosehill. So the Rosehill Community Center was one of my favorite accomplishments during my first 8 years as mayor. For those of you who didn't know, Rosehill was listed as the best of Snohomish County as a top wedding venue for the county. So if you look around, you can certainly see why. Even on kind of a cold, rainy, snowy kind of a February day, it's still beautiful up here, right? You can look out and you see the water, it's so calming, and you just know why people wanted to settle here in this location. So thank you all for settling here as well. So I want to thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to reflect on 2022, as well as look into what we have planned for 2023 here at the city. I always look forward to these speeches, and especially the question and answer portion, which we're going to get to after the speech. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting the event, and everybody in attendance and all of the staff who made this possible. We have most of our directors here up in the front. They're going to be here available afterwards for any questions. Certainly, if it stumps the mayor, I have some backups, just let you know. They'll be here as well. And I want to thank the directors for coming out and supporting. Thank you for what you do every day. Thank you. I also want to thank our City Council. They work so hard and diligently to better the lives of everyone here in Mukilteo. I am so appreciative to have a good working relationship between the executive and the legislative branches here in Mukilteo, and want to recognize Councilmember Jordal, as was earlier, for coming out here, and Amy, thank you very much. Yeah, Councilmember Jordal is awesome, as are most of our council members, all of our council members. 2022 was a challenging year for the city of Mukilteo. We were not immune to the significant staffing challenges that many employees were faced with after COVID. But I'm so proud of our staff who stepped up to the plate and kept the city moving forward while understaffed. I'm proud to say that thanks to the work of the staff and our council, the city made strides to better the lives of all Mukilteo residents in 2022. When the residents of Mukilteo elected me to mayor, one of my main focuses was to continue maintaining a strong environment for our business community. In order to help accomplish this, we wanted to establish an open line of communication and encourage dialogue with our business community. To this end, we introduced the Mukilteo Business Summit, which brought together businesses and city leaders. The summit was a great opportunity to gather the business community together and gauge their thoughts on how the city could be a better partner, as well as hear from a few great speakers. The results gave us here was that the city was a clearer picture of how we can help our businesses. While not all of the suggestions were within the city's scope, we will certainly work towards those we have control over. For example, permit turnaround times were a common concern expressed by those in attendance. We're currently seeking to increase our staffing levels and work with staff to find ways to streamline our permit process. One of the most encouraging aspects of this event was the wide range of business owners in attendance. The event brought together attendees ranging from the beauty and wellness industry to finance. It was a great chance to meet many business owners, which I had not yet had an opportunity to meet. In total, there were over 90 business people in attendance. This event was just the beginning of what I hope will become an ongoing collaboration between the city and the business community. The next step is to group businesses by industry and have smaller roundtable discussions as questions arise or topics come up from the city. Our businesses provide great services and job opportunities to our residents, and I will continue to work toward maintaining a healthy environment for them to thrive in. Similarly, we held a nonprofit summit at the city at City Hall about a month ago. We had over 30 people come out and collaborate on how we can all work together for the betterment of our community. I'm also appreciative of the work that our nonprofit organizations do. One key takeaway from this summit was the desire to have a central informational hub for volunteers, events, needs, and more. So often our nonprofits are putting time and energy into something other nonprofits already have the infrastructure for. For example, Kiwanis and Rotary each did gift baskets this year. So imagine if we combined efforts for a more efficient and coordinated effort to touch the lives of those in our community. Additionally, How cool would it be if we had hundreds of volunteers, all wearing shirts from the nonprofit that they represent, doing some volunteer cleanup work together for our community? That's a bit about what we have planned for collaboration with our nonprofit community in the near future, so stay tuned, and we would love all of you to be a part of that as well. One of my visions for the city continues to be the redevelopment of our waterfront, something that just brings our businesses and recreation together while maintaining access and green space for our community to enjoy. It's important to remember that while this is a priority, it will take a long time to come to fruition, given the complexity of our waterfront. We ran into some challenges with this project this year, and we were not able to progress as much as we had hoped. I think it is important that we all stay open-minded about the possibilities down at the waterfront, and I think we still have a chance to work with the Port of Everett and other stakeholders to creating a more vibrant waterfront for our community. Another one of my priorities last year was annexing the east side of the Mukilteo Speedway. We are currently negotiating an interlocal agreement with the county, and I'm hopeful that we will have an agreement soon. I also think it is important that we remember our history in Mukilteo. With this in mind, in early September, we finally replaced the Point Elliott Treaty plaque that had been stolen years ago right outside Rosehill. We held a plaque replacement ceremony with members of the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Tulalip tribes, the City Council, and members of the Mukilteo Historical Society. I've also invited the Tulalip tribes to work with the city to add a storyboard next to the plaque to tell their story. The council and I had the opportunity to go down and meet with the Tulalip Tribes Board of Directors this year, and it is great to have a working relationship with them, and I look forward to furthering that relationship. And as many of you know, addressing the speeding problem in our community was also a focus of mine last year. How many of you remember years ago, it was common knowledge that you did not speed in Mukilteo? For whatever reason, I think we had gotten away from that. So I'm proud to say that we now have 2 officers dedicated to traffic enforcement, and you may have seen Officer Gonzalez in our new Tesla. He's out on the streets conducting traffic enforcement. Ultimately, we want to ensure safety here in our community and limit the amount of reckless driving on our roads. And it is not just the speeding that is an emphasis for us. We are continuing to look at ways that we can make Mukilteo safer for walking, biking, and driving. And as your mayor, public safety is always at the top of my mind. Chief Kang and I are continually looking for ways to drive crime down in our community. Additionally, we seek ways to collaborate with other jurisdictions to address crime issues that affect us collectively. As you may have heard by now, there has been a rise in crime due to a change in our policing policy laws here in Washington State. One of the most notable changes that other mayors and I have been calling on state legislators to address is the State versus Blake decision, which effectively legalized hard drugs. This change has led to an increase in property crime here in Mukilteo. It has also made it more difficult for those who need help to receive it. As you can see on the slide, assaults, burglaries, robberies, behavioral health calls, and vehicle thefts are all up in 2022. Theft, which appears to be down, is misleading in that many shops have simply stopped reporting store thefts in the last year, which leads to an inaccurate depiction of that specific stat. The unfortunate fact is that individuals addicted to hard drugs will do almost anything to feed their addiction. I do not think enabling that addiction is compassionate. I would rather see us encourage those addicted to seek one of the many treatment options we have here in Snohomish County, to get off the streets, turn their life around, and to me that is compassion. Prior to the Blake decision, law enforcement was able to team up with social workers to meet with people and give them 2 different options to choose from. One option is that we would prosecute them on their outstanding warrants. The other option is for them to get into treatment and get clean. Our goal is not to put everybody in jail. We truly want them to choose the treatment option. But the fact of the matter is that oftentimes they need that carrot and stick approach in order to seek an alternative path. The problem we're encountering now is the enforcement, or the stick option, is just no longer available, leaving those addicted with little to no incentive to get into treatment. Additionally, the legislature passed a law a few years back that essentially eliminated the police officer's ability to pursue suspected criminals fleeing in vehicles, except for extremely rare circumstances. Now, keep in mind that our officers are almost never used to pursue vehicles. but taking the option away has given people a green light to drive away if they're being pulled over. So how can we fix this issue? We need action from our state legislators on this during the legislative session. That is why I'm partnering with our new 501c4 mayors and business leaders for public safety. Together, we plan to work with business leaders, legislators, law enforcement, mental health experts, and others to help solve the homelessness and crime issues here in Snohomish County. Chief Kang and I were proud to attend the kickoff press conference in Everett a few months ago, and I look forward to sharing the progress of the organization with our community in the future. There are also some local fixes we're looking into that we can enact to help get a little bit of the enforcement piece back as well. While we're discussing the state legislature, I wanted to share some information on a bill the legislature is currently considering. House Bill 1110 would require a city with a population of at least 6,000 to authorize the development of at least 4 units per lot on all lots zoned for residential use. 4 units increases to 6 if the lot is within 1/2 mile of a major transit stop, or if 2 of the units are affordable. The bill also states that you cannot require parking on site for the units if they are within 1/2 mile of a major transit stop. Think the Sound Transit station right down the hill. The most concerning aspect of this bill is a disregard for local control and local planning. A one-size-fits-all approach is not the answer. Municipalities need local control to meet the needs of their specific and unique communities. Picture, if you will, your neighbor sells their home and the buyer builds 6 units on that same lot with limited parking. This bill would impact our historic district and prohibit the city from taking any action to protect the historic character or design language of this section of town. This district contains historic lots, which are very small and often paired into 7,000 square foot lots. So currently developed with 1 single family residence, under the rules of the bill, there would now be 12 units in that 7,000 square foot lot with limited parking requirements. Due to the dearth of actual transit to grocery stores, job centers, and other essential services, we would expect a majority of future residents to rely on private automobiles and overwhelming public parking options. If approved, the bill will require us to plan and pay for additional utilities and transportation capacity in Old Town. This bill would also force us to allow denser development around a train station with at most a dozen transit users a day, and a ferry terminal, which is extremely limited value to commuters living in Mukilteo, as there are very few job centers on Whidbey Island. The increase in density in this location would completely upend our land use and transportation planning efforts, and there is no ability to provide the needed commercial or public services in this area. And it would pull development potential from the areas in town where we have better pedestrian and transit connections between residential and commercial uses. So legislators have commendable goals in mind. Housing affordability is becoming an increasing concern in our region. But House Bill 1110 is not the answer for Mukilteo. Recently, the legislature amended the bill to, among other things, not include cities with a population under 25,000. While this is a welcome change, I still have concerns with the intent of the underlying legislation and municipalities losing their local control. I'd like to thank the City Council for passing the 2023 budget largely as presented. Up on the screen, we have a pie chart showing where our dollars come from to make up our general fund. As you can see, the bulk of the general fund is funded through taxes. There's a strong balance of where our overall taxes come from. For example, property taxes are the leading source, which is true for most cities, but we also see revenue from the sales and utility taxes. Now, on the next slide, you can see where the city spends these dollars. Similar to other cities, the largest expenditure from the general fund goes towards our police department. It is important that the city is responsible stewards of the taxpayer dollars, which is why I'm proud to say that we have successfully cleared all of our financial audits through 2020 and so far 2021, which they are currently auditing. A big thank you to our finance department for all of their hard work. We were able to complete a number of projects in 2022, thanks to the great work of our Public Works Department. A few I wanted to highlight are up on the screen. We were able to complete the Harbor Reach extension last year, as well as the Painfield Boulevard pathway repairs. The pathway was in really rough condition, and so I'm very pleased that we were able to get that repaired. We have another pathway repair coming in 2023, which I will touch on shortly. As we move on to the next slide, you'll see that we made significant improvements to 76th Street as part of the Safe Routes to School program. We also installed solar panels right here at Rosehill. And I want to thank our staff for being extremely cost-effective in completing these projects by leveraging local, state, and federal grant tax dollars as much as possible. We have some new projects on the way for 2023. Thank you to the City Council for distributing some of our ARPA dollars for these great projects. Just to highlight a few, we are really excited about some improvements to this building. As you likely have noticed, we're in need of a new projector. If you notice, we're using a little small one there and not the large one up there, and it's a little bit light and slightly blurry. But a new one's on the way. We're also staining and painting portions of the exterior of Rosehill, as well as replacing carpet in some locations, and the tables that you're sitting in right now will be replaced. These improvements are going to help keep the facility in good condition for years to come. Another project we have coming up is implementing digital parking permits. Frankly, this project is long overdue. We used to spend an extraordinary amount of time, staff time, on hand mailing out parking permits to residents. This will hopefully make the process more efficient for both us and the public. We're going to have some upcoming grant opportunities for organizations here in Mukilteo. The details of that project are still being ironed out, but we do have $350,000 set aside for grants that we're looking forward to giving out to here in the community. And the last project I wanted to highlight is 92nd Street Park. For those of you that have seen the playground there, you can tell how dated some of that equipment is, and I'm pleased that the council funded new playground equipment at the park for our families and kids to enjoy. And it's interesting when I look at 92nd Street Park and we talk about the dated playground equipment, and I remember helping put the playground equipment in. It just makes me, maybe I am dated as well. But, we also have some more projects in the works. To name a few, in Japanese Gulch, we'll be doing a trail bridge repairs and a new dirt jump bike course. In addition, we'll also be working on a new city website, Harbor Point Boulevard pathway repairs, the 525 bridge sidewalk widening, and more. So next, we're going to move to my favorite portion, which is the question and answer. I think this is, I've got a nice little cordless here, and I will come down there. So questions. There you go. That. I'll come down as well. All right. Did we already have some that were submitted? You can just, yeah, you can do what you need with that. You have some? Okay. Only about 30, that's good.
31.
Okay. Do you, oh, you need a mic to read the
That
question.
one looks like, yeah, that one looks like it was already addressed. Okay. Can you give an update on the ARPA funds received from the federal government? How is that money being spent on economic recovery? I know you mentioned some benches and things, and
Yeah. So early on, there were, and there may be some business owners in here that received a grant through that as well. When we were in the heat of that, we were giving out money to businesses to help them get through that. We have, like we said, $350,000 set aside that is going to be used for, we already have some nonprofits putting in some applications, and that process is being worked out as well. So we want to be able to get that into some of our nonprofits who also struggled through COVID, and many of them, some of them actually came through it stronger, right? So that we are using a number of the ARPA dollars on some of the projects that we may not have been able to do earlier. Some of that may go to the Japanese daylighting. Some of it may go to a park on the south end of town, the Harbor Point Park, which has kind of been sitting for years. It's just most people don't even know it's a park. Some of it you might see going into the refurbishing of the off-leash dog park down in Old Town. So there's a number of projects that the City Council is working through. You would think it would be easier to get money to people. Right? Not so easy. We actually wanted to put it there was talk early on and continued through to be able to give money to people who were not able to pay their utility bills during the time of COVID. Well, you can't just say I needed help. I couldn't pay my utility. We know who they are. but it requires them to fill out some paperwork. And I guess I was just surprised that many people aren't willing to fill out paperwork to help their utility bills get paid. So that has sort of stalled. Any other? What's your next question?
Where is the best place to buy drugs? Wait, that's not. Who submitted this question, people? No, I can. You. Sorry. I'm so serious all the time. I continue to see folks panhandling over by QFC, and I've heard of some problems with some homeless folks. How is the city handling these issues?
I looked at the police here. I can tell you that we have talked with QFC, or not QFC so much, but the property owners of that property to get permission to trespass people who are standing there panhandling. And then it's just a matter of, we've got permission to do that. And I'm going to come down here. Is there a mic down there? No. Nick, where'd that mic go?
Yeah, we can get it.
There he is. Why don't you give Andy a mic there? So they have one down there. And so that's one of the ways. Now you think, right, I'm being compassionate, I'm being helpful, somebody's standing there out there with a sign saying, you know, please give me some money. And when you give them the money, what we would rather they do is that they go and seek the services, which we, between our officers and our embedded social worker, they're always given that opportunity. We'd like to get you into services. And most of them just say, nah, I'm good, thanks though. I want to stand out here and just collect cash. And that's usually not the best way to help them. But, Andy?
Yeah, so Andy Illian, I'm the assistant chief. Chief Kang's on vacation this week, which I think he planned strategically, so I'm filling in for him. But as the mayor said, the first thing to understand with panhandling is there's Supreme Court cases where that is considered a First Amendment right. So there's different cities have tried enforcing laws that prevent panhandling, but basically they've all been shot down. So what you'll see is you have to basically tailor them to the specific problem, whether it's aggressive panhandling in intersections or on private property. So what we've done with QFC is we partnered with them. Officer Fabia, our crime prevention officer back there, did fantastic work, reached out to all the business owners, and we got a trespass letter for the whole QFC property. So basically that now allows us the authority to, if someone's panhandling on them, to, on their behalf, trespass the individual from it. Now that being said, there's nothing preventing them from then standing on the sidewalk and panhandling. Because unless they're blocking the sidewalk or they're causing some sort of a disturbance, there's not a lot we can do to prevent that. And then, as the mayor also talked about, we started this year having an embedded social worker, which is incredible because she'll go out with us, spends 20 hours a week with us, and we'll proactively go out and try and find people, whether they're living in the car, panhandling. I don't know how many times Nathan and her have been walking through the woods looking for homeless camps to be able to proactively offer services to these individuals that need it. And thirdly, as the mayor addressed, some people, you need the stick. You offer compassionate service, you offer them help, but some people refuse help. You especially see this during the summertime when temperatures are warm and they don't mind living outside. And State v. Blake, lots of those people also have underlying drug issues. And without the ability to take enforcement on drug actions, that's why you're seeing kind of homeless increase and crime increase throughout Snohomish County, Washington. You see the same thing in Oregon where they enacted laws very similar to ours as well.
And I would just say, the one way to make people not want to stand out there and panhandle is if they're standing there for 8 hours and they get nothing. It's not, right? They're not going to stand out there for nothing. And I know that we've stopped a few of them, and of course you talk to them, and no, we live in Everett. We just heard this is a good spot. So let's not make it a good spot.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy, for your comments. Next question. Yes.
Are you guys trying to come up with new ideas on how to handle panhandling other than, I get the laws prohibit you from doing your job, but do you guys getting together and what else can we do in order to help that community? Because it's a community.
Yeah.
You know, I'm up there, I see them all the time, And the officers have done a fantastic job. Going with compassion and that type of stuff certainly helps. But is there anything, anything new? I've heard this for years now. Is there anything new as far as legislation and what kind of approach?
That would be great.
The approach, right?
We haven't, and we're encouraging, right? If the legislature gets some legislation that helps, doesn't hurt, right? It seems like a lot of the legislation that came out did the opposite of what they were trying to do. Telling people that drugs, it was okay to use them in public, and it just increased it more. And telling the police officers, well, you can't chase anybody, and you tell that to the criminals, well, the first thing they're going to do is, well, you can't chase me, and they'll just run. When you're talking about paneling, again, I think it's a matter of reaching out to them. They're easy to spot. They're not hiding, right? They're right out there, and offering them those services. There has to be a point where we say, this isn't just a lifestyle choice. You can't stand out here and beg, or worse, right, cut off somebody's catalytic converter, or break into their car, or break into their house, or to continue to feed your habit. We want to encourage them to turn their lives around and get that help. And so it'd be great to have legislation that has more of the services available, but gives the police the tools back to encourage them. When you think of people who are addicted, they're probably not making the best decisions at that time and won't always seek help. But how many of people, you hear the story over and over again that said, being arrested literally saved my life. I would never have done that myself, but it forced me to go a different way. It doesn't work for all of them. Some of them are, as they say, they're not ready yet. They haven't hit rock bottom or what have you. But when you take that option away, we're seeing more and more people dying on the streets. With fentanyl, we thought COVID was bad and everybody was worried about dying of COVID and all of that, and we shut our businesses down and stopped society. The numbers you're seeing of people dying from fentanyl right now is frightening. And nobody pays attention because we don't see it, right? It's on the streets. But it's happening, and we need to change the way we're addressing it.
It's happening in our community and we don't even realize it.
Yeah, it's happening behind the scenes.
Next question. I am starting to hear rumors regarding changes at Payne Field because they are our neighbors. Are the groups driving this change keeping your office in the loop? If so, do you have any information you could share regarding potential changes at the airport?
If you're talking about commercial service changes, expansion or any of that, I assume, I don't know who wrote the question, but well, we definitely do. As a matter of fact, the city, for the record, put in a letter with regard to the siting of the next potential CTAC, if you will. And it looks like what's happened now is the governor is now actually putting together there's legislation to start a new committee. Either they didn't like the answers that came out of the last one, it was what I would suspect, but now they're looking at forming another committee on this airport siting. So we'll see where that one goes. We think that we may be dodging a bullet, so to speak, at Payne Field only because the next large airport is going to need to be at least 2 runways. And we don't believe there's just a way to get another runway down there. You take out the speedway, but that's about 20 or 30 feet lower than there's really no space there for a second runway. But I've always contended that for our region, for our state, why wouldn't we continue to encourage aerospace manufacturing? We don't want to try to do aerospace manufacturing, and commercial service. At a certain point, that is not a good mix. Otherwise, Boeing would be building their planes at SeaTac. Well, that's never going to, right? That doesn't make any sense at all. So why are we trying to bring SeaTac to Boeing? So on the long run, we should be focusing on all of the space around that airport rather than expanding commercial, which all of us, I'd rather fly out of Payne than SeaTac, I get it, right? But not being selfish and thinking regionally, we have got such an asset here. We need to be talking to Boeing suppliers and getting more of them there on the site and make it so hard for Boeing to ever want to leave because they've got so much infrastructure and so many partners right here. So we need to expand that and not continue to look at commercial service, in my opinion. So yes, we keep an eye on it, but there's not a ton happening right now. So that's good.
The last question that I have was, can you talk about capital projects? And I think you pretty well talked about that for 2023. So, Candace, do you have other questions that were submitted?
So actually, this is a question of mine. The Mukilteo Boulevard is going to be closed at the border between Everett and Mukilteo. Has there been any new information on the actual closure date? And has the city of Mukilteo looked at any impact from changing traffic patterns to the community and with the different routes for school buses, et cetera?
Yeah, I thought maybe a zip line would be awesome, but
She can move.
yeah, no, you can't get your car across that. Do you have anything to add on that? This is Matt Nienhaus, our Public Works Director.
Hi, I'm Matt Nienhaus, your Public Works Director, and we work real close with Everett. In fact, our city engineer was Everett's engineer working on that project, so she has a real close relationship. They're still working through some final things to get that project out to bid, and there'll be a lot more public outreach when it comes to the closure of that. Unfortunately, it is going to close for about a year. It is in the city of Everett. But there will be impact to transit, school buses, and everybody that uses the boulevard. So there'll be a significant amount of outreach when that comes across. They're hoping to start it after school gets out in June, but we'll see what happens. So more to come on that project. So yes.
Yeah, good news, we can have block parties on 5th. So that's never been able to happen, so there's always a silver lining.
Other questions?
Aha, former council member champion.
Thank you. Swinging back to your concerns with the legislature's, is it 1110 bill that's being addressed? If that passes and if it's capped at 25,000, what's your thinking with regards to the urban growth area and expansions under
Annexation?
annexation?
Yeah. So we looked at annexation. If for those of you who don't know, our MUGA, or Municipal Urban Growth Area for Mukilteo, which was set many, many years ago. Currently our border is Bev Ed Road and the Speedway, and then of course to the water. It would extend east to Airport Road, out to 99, and up to 128th, which is where the Safeway is, and then basically out to the water. So that's our MUGA, that area there is what if we annex the entire thing, that would be our new boundaries. So we would have half of 99, half of Airport Road, up to Safeway and down to the water. None of the airport. Yeah, they're not going to give that up to us. So we looked at, did it make sense? We did a study, Burke and Associates did a study on it, and does it make sense to do it in pieces or to do a full annexation? At the time, the state was giving 1.1% of a sales tax that the city could keep to help offset the initial costs of annexing. Initial costs like expanding the police, fire, public works. You now have to service a larger area. So putting all of those pieces in place. We looked at that. It was a big fight with the county and trying to get the annexation. And for me at the time, I wanted to do it because of the fact I wanted to help control what that area looked like before it had all developed out. Well, fast forward to today, most of that area is developed, not in necessarily a way that we would like. So I don't see us really probably, and there's certainly no push from the council to do a large annexation. I think at a certain point we need to go back to the county, the Boundary Review Board, and work with them and say, okay, we really don't have ever any plans of annexing that area and moving our MUGA boundaries, because as long as it's in our boundaries, Linwood or Everett or Edmonds cannot annex it. They can annex areas in their MUGA or areas that aren't divided yet, but they can't without we have to back off of that. So we just need to have a serious conversation. Where do we see ourselves going in the future? And I see us, and where I'm trying to move now is to the east side of the Speedway. I mean, that one makes sense on every level because all of those businesses there, who shops there, right? It's all of us. It's our tax dollars going into Azteca and to Mukilteo Speedway Cafe and all of those little businesses there. and all of that tax dollars going to the county. In fact, we're servicing, our police and fire get called over there, and we're close. We probably go more times than not. So it just makes sense to annex that portion, and that's what we're actively working on now. But I don't know we're going to get any further than that, Bob, unless there was some push by the council. I certainly am not pushing for that at this time. Yeah. Yeah, we're at about 21.6. If we did, it would put us over, either over or close to 30,000. Well, 1,000 of those are just in the apartments across Safeway. So it would increase our population, absolutely put us over the 25,000 mark. But it isn't even, I see us, because we're at 21.6 now, roughly, it doesn't take much to get us to 25, right? But really at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether it's cities, 10,000, 25,000, or 100,000. The state shouldn't be doing that. The state should not be telling local entities or municipalities how they should grow out. That's, what are we doing here? Why do you elect a mayor and a city council if not to be your voice about how your city is going to grow? And when the state takes that on and says, oh, no, we'll do it. So anyway, I'm very passionate about that, because they just need to stay out of our lane, because they're just going to come in and mess it up, right? There's a lot of things they need to fix down there that they should be doing, and not our job. Any other question?
What are you going to continue to do to support business in Mukilteo that's already here, and to attract new business here? You mentioned stuff surrounding the airport and aerospace. What are the specific plans to continue to support what's here and to bring in new business that will benefit the community, those who live here, and of course, aerospace?
Yeah, good question. Other than with my pocketbook, I try to frequent our Mukilteo businesses. It's really having those conversations, kind of like we did with the summit, and we will continue those on a smaller scale with those entities. Just letting them know, opening those lines of communication. A lot of times, what they need is for us to just, not do as much. Kind of get out of our way and let us do business. Now, you have to have zoning, you've got to have some controls, and you got to have that. So some of that's even out of our control that we can't do. But we can be better in terms of trying to move, if it's a new business coming in, moving those permits through to get them to open quicker. Time is money, right? Taking an extra 90 days to get a permit when they could be open, and they're paying all of those costs, but nothing's coming in. I get all of that. So where we can move faster to help that business. There are many times before we would go out and we looked for, our previous city administrator and myself, we tried for like a year and a half to get Trader Joe's to come in, down there where over by Staybridge and Sector 13 has just been still sitting empty, and try to do a village concept there. So we're reaching out and reaching out. One of the tough things we have for attracting businesses, especially commercial business in Mukilteo, is they all like to do this is the dollars, right? This is the pocketbooks within this segment. Well, how's Mukilteo? Well, you've got the airport and you got the water. So when they try to do this, it doesn't pencil. Oh gosh, we can't capture enough. And then we try to sit down and explain, well, you've got 4.5 million cars you're driving through to get to Whidbey Island. You've got, many people who shop here because they're sort of penned in. So it's a matter of having those conversations, convincing them to take a chance that yes, you will do well here. But if you just want to draw a circle and say, I can't capture enough pocketbooks, it doesn't work that way for us, right? So, Jim, I hope that helped and answered that for you. Is there anybody else? Yes? Crosswalk?
What is the city doing to really engage and support youth? And there's this kind of a gap that the city hasn't really wanted to focus in on.
Yeah, well, I would say we have, right? Not only the city before, I was on the Y board for many years and part of the council, and we helped put money in to build that skate park, right, and to support getting the YMCA built. We put in money and helped the Boys and Girls Club get built. So I would say we have a history of helping youth and being very supportive. We have our Mukilteo Youth Advisory Council that we started to give the youth a voice and get them involved. So we definitely want not only that communication, but we want to support the youth in our community. As far as the seniors, that discussion has been going on. When we built this facility, we specifically built the room at the end specifically for the seniors. That's good. I mean, that's why it has a kind of a little kitchenette area and their own bathroom and a little storage area and so forth, was for they have a space. They have outgrown that and they want a larger space. We're working with them now on a piece of property over by the community garden that they can build a facility. We have no interest in owning that building in terms of monitoring or maintaining it or staffing it. But we will do whatever we can to work and continue to get grants to get it built and try to move that forward. Who here is not getting older? Okay, right? Of course. So I think we all have an interest in making sure that we not only have a vibrant senior resources here and things for them to be able to get involved in. So. But again, I don't know that we want to be in a place where we house that and we staff it. And they've said to us that's not what they want. They just want the location and maybe some help getting the dollars, which we definitely stand ready to do. And then the crosswalk, yes, we're going to get that done. Matt, what's the date on that crosswalk?
This year, 2023.
We're doing it in conjunction with that road. We have to do the whole road. So 2023-ish. 2023-ish. I wish it was as simple as just I'm going to get some white paint and we're going to paint a line, right? Yeah. I found years ago that just government's not that simple. I wish it was sometimes. Any other? Yes.
So as I've been walking in the community, I've noticed an increase in graffiti and gang tagging, it's flowing. And I don't know if this is rumor or not, but I heard something that there's like, if you work with law enforcement, that you can kind of be a citizen who is eligible to go and take it off, that the response for citizens to get spray paint or whatever you need to go ahead and take it off. Is Mukilteo doing something like that? And if so, how do you get involved?
Yeah. And I don't know if Nathan wants to take that or Andy, but I'll say while they're getting the microphone. I hate the graffiti, right? And you drive around, especially through Everett, through Linwood, coming in and out of Mukilteo, and you drive and you look, it is horrible. So actually, I feel good when I come into town and it's, you'll see an occasional, we try to get on it really quickly. It becomes a little more difficult when it's private property. You've got to work with them to get it done. But I feel good about what I'm seeing around us to what I see here. But even one is too many, right? We need to get on it as fast as possible.
Well, it's particularly heavy down by the train tracks and,
Yeah.
by the trails and stuff. So maybe you could speak to kind of getting into how they mark and just some extra on that.
I need to spend more time on the railroad tracks.
Yeah. So thank you for your question. So the first part about the graffiti is yes, there's an increase in graffiti again statewide. Not to point fingers, the legislature back in 2021, they made a lot of changes that I think they had the best intentions for, but they didn't really consult law enforcement, prosecutors, or even kind of youth advisory groups to see how this could impact them. One of the changes that they made is by law, if we have a juvenile that is a suspect, we have to, their parents and the juvenile can no longer say, yes, we will talk to you. We have to, by law, call a defense attorney on behalf of the juvenile. And I'm sure you can imagine the defense attorneys doing their job, and what they're going to say is, don't talk to the police. And so what that's done is that has decreased the amount of investigations that police can even do. As a parent myself, that can be frustrating because they've in essence, taken away my rights as a parent to say, yes, you will talk to the police. Because the lawyer, the defense attorney, supersedes the parent. So basically how lots of investigations go is we will have, again, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And so we will go do an investigation, and then we will reach a certain point where we have to call the defense attorney on behalf of the juvenile, and the defense attorney will tell us, nope, you can't speak to my client anymore. And so that's one of the things that makes graffiti tough. The other thing is, quite frankly, social media too. I'm not sure if any of you saw the graffiti KOS that was hitting our city and hitting all of Snohomish County. That was a TikTok trend. That stands for Kids on the Street. And so what happens is lots of these juveniles don't even necessarily have any gang affiliation, but they see something on TikTok, they see something trending on Instagram, and do it. Now, what we're fortunate of is we regionally have great relationships with our law enforcement entities throughout Snohomish County. Our school resource officer, she is a wealth of information. She works closely with Everett's and with Snohomish County school resource officers. We're frequently in contact with the Drug and Gang Task Force. But again, the number one thing you guys can do is if you see graffiti, don't assume it's been reported. You know, we always encourage people, soon you're going to be able to report it online if you prefer, or call the non-emergency line to report it as well. And then the last part about graffiti, which, you know, huge shout out to our Public Works Department, is it's cleaning it up as soon as possible. So New York did a study with their subways, and they found that if they were able to clean off graffiti within 24 hours of it being tagged on their subway trains, the graffiti dropped by, I don't remember the percentage, but it was like 60 to 80% decrease, because for the person tagging, the reward is to continue to see it. But like anything else, it's an investment on time. So if you spend all this time tagging it and then the very next day it's gone, at a certain point you're going to find somewhere else to tag. As the mayor alluded though, where our hands kind of get tied is when it happens on private property. You know, because I can't authorize you or someone else to go onto private property to clean off graffiti. And so that's where the partnerships with the businesses really become vital. So.
One other thing, reporting it is key. Like you said, on the home page on the left side is a link that's called Fix It Public Works. And that's a great place to report graffiti or anything else, potholes, street lights out. But if you report graffiti there, we go, Public Works goes and looks at it, we report it to the police, take pictures, and we try and clean it up ASAP. There is some real problem areas, like down by the train tracks underneath there, but throughout town we try and get on it that day, the next day, as soon as we can if it's around town. So just Fix It Public Works link is the best way for us to get on it.
Really quick, I have a very loud voice. So is there a place where citizens can participate and volunteer? No.
I'm not aware of any program. We can research that and check it out, but I'm not aware of a program like that. We usually try and just get out there with our staff and get it done as soon as possible. Now, when it comes to private property, that's a different story because we can't do it. So we usually have to work with the homeowners or the resident, and it takes a little bit longer. So.
That was interesting. Sam, I'm a Rotary with her. We had a gentleman who did a little bit of research, was in Rotary, this a decade ago or more, and they have a program that you could pick up gray paint from them, and for a long time, him and I would take his truck out with 5-gallon things of gray paint and these big, rollers and stuff, and you would just almost adopt a highway, and you'd go along the highway and just paint the graffiti on the sound walls. There's a problem with that, and we found quickly, is that those darn sound walls, they're ridges, and it's about that thick. It doesn't look like it when you're driving by. When you get up close, those ridges between, so it's really hard to get the paint in there. You really almost need a sprayer instead of a roller. But I know there was a project like that with Washout where you could adopt and go out. And quite frankly, we just got tired of going out and lugging paint around and painting the sound walls. Anybody else amazed at how they get to some of those places? And you never see them. How? Anyway, there's another hand back here somewhere. Somebody's taking their life in their hands for sure. Yes?
I was with the city council in 1985 with the county changed the charter of the airport to be from a working airport to a commercial passenger airport. But during the hearings that we had at that time, the fatal flaw was that around these big airports, they have to have like a 30-mile radius of waiting for planes to wait to land when they need to. And our airport here, the waiting patterns would overlap. And so that kind of became a fatal flaw, and it kind of slowed things down for a while. They must have figured something out in the meantime. But anyway, if they're talking about, expanding like you're seeing on the news, making another SeaTac basically, and you're talking about them needing a second runway, that's one problem, but the second problem still remains. The more traffic there is, the more overlap there's going to be. So I would really emphasize that, and I'm sure they have to look at that. But as usual, if they want to do something, they'll just change the rules. But just making that comment that years ago, when they were considering opening the commercial airport here in the first place, that was a fatal flaw, and maybe we could still use that somehow.
Yeah, Tom Howerton, former council member. Thank you, Tom. So, interestingly enough, I think the reason that changed as well is Boeing moved in early 60s, 62, somewhere around there, and Snohomish County owns the airport. Boeing doesn't own it. They just lease space there. Well, to continue to keep them there, they have to maintain that runway in good working order, and it takes a lot of money, right, to keep it, maintain that runway. So they use FAA dollars, and if you're going to receive FAA dollars, you have to allow commercial service. Again, it goes hand in hand. So I think that's what changed it from a working airport to possibly commercial service. In order to free up dollars to maintain the airport, they kind of traded that in. We just hope there's more people regionally who value as much commercial service and think, let's do that first, right? Let's make sure that's protected before why are we going after a silver acorn when we have a golden goose? Let's leave the acorns alone.
Hi, I just wonder if there are any plans to make a safe pathway, walkway on Mukilteo Lane and more speed limit signs on the flat part of Mukilteo Lane.
Yes, Mukilteo Lane's going to get really safe when that bridge closes, for one, for just a little while.
Yeah.
Mukilteo Lane is an interesting thing we got going on right now. The upper end of that, as you know, is owned by the city of Everett. Pretty much the whole upper part of Mukilteo Lane, even though it's all Mukilteo residences. We are working to move the boundaries between Mukilteo and Everett to take not only that portion of the road, but Japanese Gulch, which is currently in Everett, that we purchased and is our park, will be in Everett. Part of the tank down here and Edgewater Beach is in Everett. We want to move that line up to about the Boeing Pier there. And what's holding that up, Everett is ready to do that. It's just we and Everett are both doing a study right now on what it's going to cost to fix Mukilteo Lane at the top portion. I don't know what that number is yet. It might be $1 million, it might be $5 million. What do you think it is?
Higher, probably.
Probably higher. He's probably right. But I don't want to take that property and make it Mukilteo with a, say, $8 million liability to fix that road, which Everett should have fixed over the years. So that's so putting money into Mukilteo Lane right now until we know how we're going to fix it and do it, that's sort of what we're waiting on. There's talk of, are we going to have it a one-way in one direction? Do we close it completely at one end? How are we going to do that? All of that discussion, I think, will further once we know the numbers and what Everett is willing to do. But they're not going to spend $8 million to fix the road to have us close it, right? I mean, so if it gets fixed, and maybe along with that fix, we can put in a sidewalk in there. So that's the only thing holding it up. We know it's an issue. We want to deal with it, and we also, whatever we do, want to discourage too much traffic from using that as a thoroughfare as we continue to develop out the waterfront. Again, I wish things were easier. Yes?
Has there been any thought to fixing the intersection by the Dairy Queen where people are pulling out onto the Speedway going north and they're shooting right over to Harbor Point Boulevard, so they're like cutting across like 3 lanes of traffic? Yeah. Especially during traffic hour, it's crazy.
Yeah, good
You know
thing
what
we
I'm
can't
talking
go
about?
left, right? That'd really be bad. But you know what we're talking about? Right, okay. You got any thoughts on that?
There is no talk that I'm aware of that. That's washed off, we'd have to work with them on the highway. But,
Yeah.
I can reach out to their engineer and see.
It's state highway and that's on the county side, so.
it's really not Mukilteo, even though we can reach out and kind of push a little bit. It's state highway, it's county, so, yeah. I'm not aware of any project right there, though.
But yeah, we've come that way. I know that can be a little scary, especially certain times of day. Yes.
So with the concept of the crime and annexation, two things we've talked about, a lot of the crime is just outside of Mukilteo, and it is very hard to get a police response there. Actually, at Safeway, had somebody pull a knife on me. It was over 45 minutes before the sheriff showed up. Mukilteo doesn't have jurisdiction there. I'm the vice president of administration for Mukilteo Little League. Painfield Park, where our kids play, is plagued with dangerous crime, drug paraphernalia, people trying to break into our snack shack, attempted assaults. Again, I'm always waiting for the very overwhelmed, understaffed sheriff's department. Is there some kind of partnership that can be done, something that can, I don't know the proper term, deputize law enforcement to come give us assistance? When I have people beating each other in the parking lot during a kid's game, and I have to wait 30 minutes for the sheriff to show up and have to evacuate kids, that's a traumatizing situation. And if we're not gonna annex that area and have Mukilteo have control of it, what can we do to support county resources so that we can protect what's coming into Mukilteo from just outside of Mukilteo?
And by the way, the Little League fields there are not in Armuga. That will stay, I think it might even be airport property, but the county does not want to give that up. So even if we annex that east side, it won't include that.
So thank you for your question. Obviously, I live out in unincorporated county, so I understand, some of the frustrations too of, I had a RV dumped on my driveway and torched, and I was told by a deputy it was a civil issue, and I was like, well, let's check on that. We both came to the conclusion it wasn't a civil issue. But so to answer your question, yes and no. So what we do have is we have mutual aid agreements with Snohomish County and with pretty much every agency in Washington State, with the exception of some tribal agencies. That being said, the way mutual aid agreements work is that they still have to be the one to request us. Now, our officers try and proactively patrol it. We probably patrol that Safeway parking lot frequently. I mean, we're making 3 to 4 arrests out of there probably a week. Even though that isn't our jurisdiction, we recognize that kind of goes over. Same thing with over on the east side of the Speedway where we're talking about annexing. We do that as well. Now the issue is, at a certain point though, we have to try and bring our officers back in and say, hey, remember, this is our city, these are our citizens, taxpayers. It really comes down to partnerships. So the issues we're having with partnerships is every agency right now that I know to is having staffing shortages. We are pretty fortunate that we're only down one person. Back in 2020, we were down 30% of our department, which is leading to burnout. Snohomish County has 37 vacancies. Marysville has 19. Everett has, I think, 20 something right now. And to hire a new officer, if they're an entry level, it takes about a year before they're on their own patrolling. And so they're working hard, but Snohomish County is just, they're just struggling to try and find bodies. What we are doing is, again, with those partnerships, how can we work, smarter? We just put someone on the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force. We're looking at how to get someone on an ATF task force, someone to where we can bring kind of federal resources to our local area to help leverage some of the experience and bodies that they have as well. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I do sympathize with you. You know, and we also tell our officers, if you get into a collision and you're in the Safeway parking lot or you're in the Azteca parking lot, you know, just from a personal standpoint, we don't feel good saying, hey, this isn't our jurisdiction, wait here for 45 minutes for a deputy to come. So we tell our officers, yeah, you know, just out of, you know, community caretaking, if you're there and you can take a report, take a report. Now, when it comes to misdemeanors, that becomes harder because you have your own prosecutor. And so our prosecutor can't handle any services or any charges that happen outside of the city. Felonies become a little bit easier, but I don't know.
All
Any
right.
questions for fire?
Because he can answer those too. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah,
No.
so have we basically given up on the Bernie Weber park and ride? Is there anything moving on that, or any
Oh,
hope
darn,
of that?
Rick left. Oh. So the CEO of Community Transit was just sitting here. I'm still on the Community Transit Board. Yes, I have not given up on it. We have not given up on it. In fact, him and I had a discussion about 3 weeks ago. I just stepped down as chair of the board, and so I'm still on the board. I'm just not the chair anymore. And so in our last we would meet monthly with the CEO and the chair. And I say, okay, now I'm no longer chair. I'm going to be like a dog with a bone again on this. When I feel like when I'm chairing a committee or a board, I have to really think regionally, right? I'm there representing and the board. When I'm just a single board member, I get a little bit more focused on Mukilteo. I don't think it's my place to be pushing Mukilteo when I'm the board of that chair. Where we were last left at was, well, we want to, before community transit's going in a direction there, do we want to really continue to build parking lots as a way to get people closer to the buses, right? That's what the idea is about what they call the last mile. And you'll take a regional bus in, you get out, now to get from there to your house, that's maybe that last mile. So most people drive a car, or you go to a park and ride lot, leave your car, and so forth. They're trying to get away from that. They're doing what's called micro-transit. Okay, it's very similar to Uber, but being run by, in this case, community transit. So you call up, and they will pick you up at your house and take you to Alderwood Mall or to the Linwood Transit Center or to wherever. And they're hoping that maybe that, because there's a large amount of cost into building and maintaining these parking structures or parking lots, park and ride lots. And so they said, we're doing a study on this microtransit, let's see how that goes, and maybe that will answer it. Well then, they're saying, okay, and the Linwood study has started, that's where they're doing it now. And they said, following that, we've got Lake Stevens, Arlington, I think it was one other city, or next in line. I'm like, whoa, wait, well, what? I thought we were waiting to see how it went. That's what, I still believe we're the only city in the entire county that doesn't have a park and ride lot. I think Darrington has like 6 spots, but whatever. You know, they've got one, darn it. And so I continue to push for that. The tricky part is that's airport property. If they end up leasing that to go in there and have somebody develop it, we're done, right? Because I know of no other location that we could really, that would make sense for a large enough spot for a park and ride lot. That is like the sweet spot. And so it's a matter of, is it still available through the county and through the airport? And the other thing is they have to do a long-term lease. Community transit, they use federal dollars to build out projects like this. When you take federal dollars, you have to own the property. The feds don't want to put millions of dollars in capital dollars to simply lose, oh God, we got kicked out. Well, they're making an exception on this one because they're allowing them to do a 50-year lease for the assurance that they'll build it and it will stay there. So that's kind of those things that we're working on. Is it still available? Will community transit build? And I'm really pushing hard because right now community transit is pretty flush with some of those ARPA type dollars. So they're really working and doing some capital projects I think we all know that these capital dollars are going to be, they're like this, and in a couple of years they're going to be nothing. And it will be really hard to get because the federal government just spent trillions of dollars. So this may be a once in a lifetime kind of an opportunity for a lot of these projects. And so if your project isn't in the list, it could be tough for a while. I'm sorry, that was a really long answer to it. I could have just parked it, but I thought I had to describe it. You guys you didn't show up for the jokes? Come on. Yeah, look at it. Oh gosh, look at your time. Remember, please tip your waiters. Anything? All right, I want to thank you all for coming out and being a part of this, and I will see you next year, or hopefully sooner.